verse 4. Okay? Okay, so we have discussed the precious human rebirth, this wonderful opportunity we have to make a lot of progress along the path to enlightenment. And then stanzas 2 and 3, we talked about then setting up our lives in a way that allows us to focus on our practice. So now, verse 4. Loved ones who have long kept company will part. Wealth created with difficulty will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of this life. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So, this is the meditation and contemplation on impermanence and death, which is actually said for us, beginners on the path, this is the most powerful for antidote to the afflictions. You know. So as some of you may know, if you've studied the whole Lamrim before, then usually the meditation on death and impermanence is called a 9-point death meditation. And well, there are 3 root points, and then each of the 3 have a further 3 subsidiary points, and that makes 9. Okay, so this in this stanza, it's actually just the last 3 points of the 9. But I thought it is beneficial to go through all 9. Okay? So, remember, as I said before the break, if you thought about death, you would stop procrastinating, right? So, anyway, the 3 root points are, it is definite that we're going to die. Then the second root point is the time of death, or when we die, is completely uncertain. And then the last point is, at the time of our death, the only thing that will matter is our Dharma practice. Okay? So, then in the first root point, the 3 subsidiary points are that, well, they say the Lord of Death is coming, and there's nothing that can be done to turn him away. Okay, Lord of Death is like the Grim Reaper, right? So it's personified as a kind of, you know, the Grim Reaper, you know, has the sickle, comes after people to take you away. Anyway, in the kind of Indo-Tibetan tradition, it's Yama, the Lord of Death. Anyway, the point is, our death is coming, and there's nothing that can be done to, you know, turn it away. So here, you know, we're going to be doing some analytic meditation soon, I hope. But remember in the first stanza, right, we have hear, think, and meditate unwaveringly, day and night. So these are the actual 3 types of wisdom that we have. We have the wisdom that arises from hearing, wisdom arising through thinking or contemplating, and the wisdom arising through meditation. Okay, so hearing is both hearing the teachings, hearing lectures like this, but it's also when we then study or read texts, right? We come to understand and have one level of understanding based on that. Yeah. But the second type of wisdom is coming from contemplation. So here we have to take the teachings and then apply it to our own life and to our own experience. Okay. So in the explanation of this meditation on death and impermanence, it says to look at or to remember all the beings, all the people throughout history who have died. But to make it real for each of us, you should think of the friends, the family, the loved ones, people you know who have died. You understand? To make it real, right? And yeah. In Thailand, the monks, they go to the mortuary. You understand? Where the dead bodies are, the morgue. And then they look at dead bodies. You understand? Bit not nice, huh? Anyway, so see, the point is, right? Okay, we'll get to this later. So anyway, the first subsidiary point is the Lord of Death is coming and nothing can be done to turn him away, right? The second is our lifespan is constantly decreasing and nothing can be done to increase it. Okay, means kind of like like an hourglass, right? Every moment that goes by, the sand falls from the hourglass, and eventually there's no more sand. Right? So similarly, whatever lifespan we've had, that was karmically determined. Then, every moment that goes by, we get closer to the moment of our death. Then the third point is, even when we are alive, then the amount of time we have to practice dharma is very little. So, yeah. We might think, well, let's just do some more math, right? We sleep about a third of our life, right? If we sleep 8 hours a day, then it's a third of our life right there, right? So we normally think, okay, I'm going to live a long time, right? Let's say we live to be 80 years. But a third of that is lost in sleeping, right? Then, what else do we do? If we eat 3 meals a day, we have to, prepare the food, take the time to eat the food, clean up the dishes after it, right? If we work, then, that takes up however many hours in a day. And then we have to commute, to work. We're stuck in traffic, all these things. And then all the other activities that we get roped into, right? So usually, I don't know, you guys think. Usually in the center I normally teach at in Bangalore, like the best people, if they're meditating, or practicing for an hour and a half, it's like gold star. Yeah? And what do we normally do? Not even that, right? So then you see, let's say, let's be very generous and say we practice 2 hours a day. Yeah? Okay, it's like double gold star. So that's still, 1/12 of our life, right? 1/12 of our life. And so then the 80 years, what is 1/12 of that? Not very much, right? And by the way, we're not one. Yeah? We're not 1 year old. So we don't have 80 years anymore. Yeah. So there is one great Tibetan master called Guntang Rinpoche, and he was asked for his biography, his autobiography. Tell us your life story, master. And he said, well, the first 20 years of my life, I had no interest in practicing Dharma. The next 20 years of my life, I said, I'll practice Dharma later. And the last 20 years of my life, I said, I should have practiced Dharma earlier. You understand? So, contemplating in that way about those three points, one makes a decision that I must practice Dharma. You know, knowing that we're going to die, I must practice Dharma. So now the second point, the second root is the time of death is uncertain. Okay? And so here in this contemplation, there's 3 points again. One is that in general, beings in this world, our lifespan is not fixed. Okay? So again, in the Buddhist cosmology, there are many world systems in the universe. And some of these world systems, they have a fixed lifespan of 1,000 years. You know? So in any case, whether we accept that there's these other worlds or not, it's clear in this world, then there's no certainty of the time of death, right? Some humans even die in the womb, you know, some to be live to be 100, right? And then everything between that. So, yeah. Definitely, for us here in the room, if you were to line us up according to our age, then our order of death will not be like that. Okay? You understand? So anyway, the lifespan of beings in this world is not fixed. Okay, second point, that the causes for sustaining life are few, whereas the causes of death are many. So, you know, you can imagine, I mean, actually, it's very good to do this, you know. One of my gurus, he very much likes reading the obituaries. You know, obituaries. In the newspaper it says like the people who have died, and it says you know, how they've died and all this stuff. You always see this person died unexpectedly. That means they weren't practicing. So, you know, of course we have many diseases. We have many, accidents, wars, natural disasters, all these various factors that, can cause death, that do cause death. And, the causes to sustain life are few. And here it also says in the traditional commentaries that even those things that we normally see as sustaining and preserving our life, they can also lead to death. So, many thousands of people die each year having taken a medicine that they actually had an allergy to, right? Many people, they die due to eating food. Many people die, the things that are supposed to be making our lives easier, like cars and motorized transport. Yeah, many people die with that. Did you get your helmet yet? Thank you. No, you know, one of the very senior students in the center I normally teach at, so his son just died last week in a motorcycle crash. He's 23 years old. And yeah. These things happen. So, wear a helmet. Anyway, yes, the causes to sustain life are few, whereas the causes of death are many. And why is that? That brings us to the third point, that the body itself is very fragile. Right. So, you know, even some small virus which is invisible to the naked eye, gets into our blood, can cause death, right? Even a few mutation in our DNA, right, in some cells, then it becomes cancerous and then can die. Even some small buildup of plaque in our arteries in the heart can lead to a heart attack. We die, you know. So the body is very fragile. Therefore, the time of death is completely uncertain. So then, thinking in this way, then we make another decision that we must practice Dharma now. You know, as I was saying, right? If we thought about death, we would stop procrastinating. You know, procrastinating, saying like what Guntang said. Oh, I'll practice Dharma later. I'll practice later. You know, and this is actually, I think this is why this meditation is so important and powerful for us, right, as beginners. Because it's a very evil thought, this procrastinating mind, you know. Remember, right, most people in the world, no interest in practicing, but then after even we meet the teachings, then we think, I'll practice, but I'll practice later. You know? Oh, I have I have these deadlines at work or whatever, right? So I'll go to the next teaching. I'll go to the next retreat. You know? So we constantly delay our practice. Then what happens? Huh? We can die any moment. And you know, these things, you know, we're never going to be done with our work, whatever it is. There's always something else that comes up, right? Whatever excuse we have this time, you know, okay, we finish that work. We get through that deadline. We get the promotion. But then next time, it's just something else, you know? So in that way, it becomes endless. And we never get around to our practice. So now here we have the third point in this stanza, that at the moment of our death, the only thing that will matter is our Dharma practice. So here, the contemplations are again three, that, you know, our friends and loved ones, ultimately it won't matter, right? They don't go with us to the next life. Our possessions, our wealth, also. The Tibetans say, you know, like if there's a hair stuck in a piece of butter, you know, you pull the hair out, then none of the butter sticks on it. Right? So it's kind of like that. We go into our next life without anything. No wealth, no loved ones. And then even this body that's been with us since the time we were born, that we cherish so much, then, our consciousness will leave the body. Right? The body that we spend so much time trying to take care of, beautifying. Right? So, what does go with us to our next life is, the karmic imprints that we are able to place on our mind of virtue and non-virtue. Those will ripen as pleasant or unpleasant experiences. And then if we are able to get some level of realization, let's say we realize bodhicitta or emptiness or, whatever, then at a certain point those realizations get stable. And, we don't have to start over again our practice at square one. It's very interesting. Where I study in a Tibetan monastery, and then there's these recognized incarnations of lamas, and they're able to say, oh, this is the reincarnation of such and such a master, And you hear stories like, some of them, there's a great emphasis on the memorization of texts. And so, there'll be a text that's like, 60 pages or 200 pages. And then, these small children, they read it once, they have it for one morning, and then they can recite 60 pages by memory. And then there's other texts that they're given, they can't do that. And you hear, oh no, it's because that master's, his previous incarnation, he was memorizing and reciting that text often. But this other one didn't. So, every time that we come to teachings or study and reflect, we are placing various virtuous imprints on the mind, and then, they make it easier for us in the future to gain realization. I'll just say this now for fun, but we were talking about once you take rebirth in the animal realm, it's very difficult to get out. So there's a story of there's a great Indian master, Vasubandhu, who was the author of the text called the Abhidharma Kosha, and he would recite this text in the cave that he stayed in. And then there was a pigeon who kind of in the rocks above the entrance of the cave kind of made her nest there, right? So Vasubandhu would then, he'd be reciting this text over and over again, and the pigeon heard. And so then later, this pigeon was reborn as a human in the area, and told his parents, where's Vasubandhu? Okay, so then anyway, the parents they found Vasubandhu. This person became a monk, and actually it was said to have excelled Vasubandhu in the knowledge of Abhidharma. Okay? So, what's the lesson here? One, if even pigeons can get very virtuous imprints, then of course we should also. So there are even if you don't understand, right? Sometimes, like now, one of the main things that happens at teachings when you go to the teaching of, say, the Dalai Lama, he's giving what's called the oral transmission, or the lung of a particular teaching, which is like it's the unbroken lineage from the author of the text will, recite it to the disciples, and then the disciples will give to their disciples, and so forth, right? And so some of the texts, they have an unbroken lineage, master to disciple, for many centuries. Then it said, when you receive this lineage, then when you recite it or study it, then the realizations come more easily. So then you go to the teaching, and the Dalai Lama or whichever master, they'll read quite quickly. They'll do it quite quick, right? So anyway, some people, if you don't know the significance of this, it can be like, I didn't understand anything you've said, but that doesn't matter so much. You're just getting the imprints on the mind. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is, that is something we can do for animals, by the way. Whenever you see animals, how can you benefit them? Not just giving food, but giving them dharma. So even whatever, even reciting to the cow, Om Mani Padme Hum, right? Will definitely have good imprints on that cow's mind stream, and we'll give them the seeds for good rebirth, as well as all the way up to full enlightenment. So, one of our gurus, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, there's this whole practice about, they call it animal liberation practice, where, it's kind of popular in many parts of Asia, but the thought is, you see, the cause for short life is killing, but if you can extend the life of a living being, that's the cause for a long life. So the practice would be to buy animals that are about to be slaughtered, thereby extending their life and then taking care of them. So that's a good practice in and of itself. But then what our guru has done, not just to extend their life, but to then recite prayers, recite mantras, recite texts that they can hear, whereby they collect virtuous imprints. Okay? All right. Yes. So, at the moment of our death, then that's the only thing that we take with us, these imprints on our mind. Right? So then, thinking in this way, then we make the third decision that I must practice Dharma purely. I must only practice Dharma. That's the only thing that's ultimately important in this life. What do you think? There are stories of some great Tibetan masters. Then, outside the cave of this one master, there's a bush, and then when he came out of the cave, then sometimes his robes would get like caught on the bush and so forth. So then he thought, oh, I should really cut down that bush, or trim it back. But then he thought, oh, wait a minute, I could die today. And so actually, that time I would take to cut back the bush, I could be using to practice Dharma. So he didn't cut back the bush. You understand? It's very interesting, very I think about this. So sorry, I'm telling you these kinds of stories also so you can relate it to your own life. So when we have the wisdom arising from contemplating the teachings, right? So I'll just give you a little story. I like mangoes. Okay? Then in mango season, right? You buy mangoes. Okay? So where my monastery is, right? We have to go to the town. They actually don't sell fruit in the monastery. It's very strange. Tibetans, they're really not into fruit. So you go to the town, and I bought a kg of mangoes. Yes. Okay? So now, I come back home, looking forward to my mangoes. And open up the bag, and then what do I discover? One of the mangoes is rotten. Do you understand? See, anyway, I trusted the fruit seller, right? I just asked for 1 kg of mango. Some of the people, they're looking. I didn't do that. Just give me 1 kg. He gave me one that was rotten. Okay? So, then what happens? Right? I'm upset. Yeah? We think, oh, I can't believe this person gave me a rotten mango. From now on, I'm not going to just trust that fruit seller. I'm going to really examine every mango. Right? And I was thinking, oh, should I even go back to town and get a new one? But then it's like, a 20-minute rickshaw ride. So I'm like, no. Okay, I'm not going to do that. But I'm not going to be fooled again. So, that mango, okay, let's say it's 60 rupees for a kg of mangoes. Yeah, not the great ones. I'm not eating Alfonso mangoes. Okay, 60 rupees. So then one rotten mango might be 15 rupees. You understand? So basically, I've now wasted, or 15 rupees has been lost by buying the rotten mango, unbeknownst to me. You understand? Then, how upset we get, and then what kind of determination? I must never let this happen again. Therefore, I'm checking all those mangoes. You understand? So now, with our precious human rebirth, where, you see, even 1 minute of meditating on bodhicitta, this altruistic wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, right? It says in the texts, right, that the benefit of meditating on bodhicitta for even 1 minute is greater than filling the entire universe with the 7 types of jewels, right? Diamonds, pearls, coral, lapis lazuli, whatever, right? Whatever you like. Sapphires. And then making offerings of that many jewels, filling the whole universe with jewels, to, numberless Buddhas, numberless Bodhisattvas, numberless holy beings. You understand? So you have to understand. There's a story. There's one great king, I forget his name, but this king, forget the details, but he was able to be reborn as a great and powerful, wealthy king because in one of his past lives he gave just some porridge to 4 monks, ordinary monks. You understand? Then the ripening effect of that karma was he was born as a king. Okay? Little bowls of porridge. Okay? So can you imagine the porridge, what is that worth? Right? So then can you imagine what the ripening effect of making that many offerings of all these jewels, and not just the 4 ordinary monks, but countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? So much more. Right? And that's what we can do with this precious human rebirth. So we get, I won't talk about you. I got so upset. Oh, that mango, rotten mango, wasted 15 rupees. But every day that goes by, actually every minute goes by that we just waste. Right? We waste our precious human rebirth. If we were smart, then we would make the same determination, right? Because 15, we lost 15 rupees and then we did all this business, right? I'm never going to do that again, right? If we really knew how precious every moment of our life was, I don't know. Huh? I mean, let me put it this way, right? If we were going to die today, right? Then we just look back at the past week of our lives and say, what would I not have done? Very tasty exercise. And by the way, now is the time to practice, because we don't know when we're going to die. But also, it's true. As we get older, then, our body declines, our mental faculties decline, and, don't wait till retirement, When I first moved to Dharamsala, I became friends with someone who was working in the bank. And in India here, they have this tradition for you know, for the men, after their children are, I think, graduated from university, they go become sannyasins, yeah? So this bank manager, you know, we get to talking, and he says, you know, I told him, I've moved here from the US, I've come to Dharmasala, and I want to practice, I want to study. He said, how old are you? I said, I'm 28. He said, yeah, you see, you're 28, not 82. Huh. So anyway, they think there's a tradition that, yeah, when you're 82, then you know, devote the rest of your life to practice. But the point is, who knows if we're going to see our 82nd birthday, right? If we do, are we going to be in as good mental and physical condition as we are today? And from the time between now and our 82nd birthday, if we're not practicing Dharma, how much more negative karma will we have accumulated that just then creates more obstacles to us? Yeah. Anyway. There's one Tibetan master, he said, if I don't meditate on impermanence, death and impermanence in the morning, I will waste my entire morning. If I don't meditate on death and impermanence in the afternoon, I'll waste my entire afternoon. You know? So, I don't know, what do you think? Good. Okay. Stanza number 5. Okay? Ale. Actually, let me say this too, right? When we talk about letting go of this life, let go of this life. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So, in general, this is the bar that determines whether someone is a Dharma practitioner or not. You know, there's another teaching that's in the Sakya tradition called parting from the 4 attachments, and in that it says, if you have attachment to this life, you're not a Dharma practitioner. If you have attachment to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you have attachment to your own aims, then you don't have bodhicitta. And if you have attachment or grasping to true existence, then you don't have the view of reality, the correct view of reality. So it really is this one. Letting go of this life means to prioritize seeing. You know, it's actually very nice, right? Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body, right? So, you know, like when we stay in a guest house, right? Since we see it as just a temporary abode, or, you know, in the waiting room of a train station or something, we don't spend much time or energy trying to fix up the place, because we see it just as a temporary place that we're resting, right? So anyway, seeing that, this life we might have another 40 years or so, but what happens after this life is endless. The consciousness will continue. So then what happens after this life is, so much more important than what happens in this life. Right? So, letting go of this life, then here, normally in the teachings, they'll also talk about the so-called 8 worldly concerns. Okay? So the 8 worldly concerns are 4 pairs of opposites. Yeah, and we have excessive attachment or desire for the 4 good ones, and aversion for the 4 bad ones. So anyway, there are gain and loss, pleasant sensory experiences versus attachment to pleasant sensory experiences and aversion to unpleasant ones. Attachment to pleasant sounds or praise, and aversion to criticism or unpleasant sounds. And then attachment to a good reputation and aversion to a bad reputation. Yeah. So, again, we can think how much of our lives is being spent, has been spent, is being spent on getting the 4 good ones and avoiding the 4 not so good ones. Then combining it, with these meditations on the precious human rebirth, and then especially death and impermanence, it is the primary way to stop our excessive preoccupation with these 8 worldly concerns. Hi. Yes.
Is it possible? Is there one special meditation that helps us to learn how to practice this beginning of this body?
Wait, is there a special meditation that helps us to do what? To what? Easily leave the body. Like, you mean at the time of death? Or
we can practice now, so by the time of death we can easily happily go.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, there is. There is. Yes, there is. So the most important thing is to actually, give up our various attachments to loved ones, to our possessions, and to our body. These are the things that, if we have at the time of death, makes it more difficult to die and actually can create the bad condition whereby we would take a bad rebirth. There is a story of a woman who was very beautiful, but she was very kind of infatuated with her own appearance, right? Always looking in the mirror, So because she had such attachment to her own body, she was reborn as a snake that then actually came and was like slithering up and down her old corpse. There's many stories like this. Then there was a monk who, monks were only supposed to have a few possessions. One of them is our alms bowl. But he had a very nice alms bowl. And so he was even attached to that. And I think he was reborn as, a frog or something, that then jumped in the alms bowl. Then there's a story of I forget the details, but someone had a lot of attachment to maybe his wife or something, and then he was reborn as a dog in that household, right? So giving up attachments to these things are very important. But the best thing to do at the time of death, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you need to have a virtuous thought. Because, you see, for us, before we have a control over where we're taking rebirth, if a virtuous mind is present at the time of death, a virtuous karmic imprint will ripen. And so the best virtuous mind is the mind of bodhicitta. Right? And, we were saying, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. You could do a meditation whereby you think, at your time of death, may all of the suffering of beings who are, experiencing death or will experience death in the future, may that now ripen upon me right now. And may no one ever again have to experience this type of suffering. Very nice. Okay. What was that? Yes.
Could you explain?
Oh, okay.
I understand if I know wearing helmet, I don't care about my life. So I
So she's asking how to not get attached to this life, but then on the other hand, you are taking care of your body also in the same way. So.
But different way. I just have драгоценное рождение.
Precious human life.
Yes. So how to understand?
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, thank you. Now, it is true. I think I'm understanding your question correctly, right? So, we use this body. Okay, remember, Shantideva said, once we've attained the boat of a precious human rebirth, use it to cross the great ocean of suffering. This type of boat will not be found easily again. Therefore, there's no time for sleep, you fool. Okay? So, this boat analogy, right? We're using the boat to cross the river or to cross the ocean. Okay? So, we need this body, this human body, to practice. Right? And, if we get sick, or, if we don't take care, then that will damage our ability to practice. Right? So we should take care. But to a certain point, right? They say, I think Shantideva also says, right? Like, there's some analogy. It might not be politically correct, but it's like a slave owner, right? A slave owner will give food to the slaves, right? So that the slaves can do more work. Right? Yes? So, similarly, we take care of our body, but so that we can use it to do work. The real work of Dharma practice. Yeah? Huh?
Not too much.
Not too much. So this is again what we see in the, the middle way, right? Whereas, remember, when the Buddha was still training on the path, before he manifested enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, at one point he was practicing austerities, means he was not eating. And then in some texts you'll see that he ate 1 grain of rice a day, and I've also seen it that he was eating 1 grain of rice in a year. Whatever the case, you'll often see this image of the Buddha in Thailand, where he's emaciated, just skin and bones, right? But he realized that wasn't the way. The self-mortification, torturing yourself, wasn't the way, wasn't the answer. Okay? So actually, after he'd practiced like that for 5 years, then he was, so weak, it was damaging his ability to practice. So then a milk girl or something, right? Sujata, yeah, gave him kheer, this Indian sweet. Yes, yeah. Okay, the Buddha ate it, was revitalized, and went to the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, sat underneath, and then said, okay, I'm not getting up until I reach the final goal. Right? You with me? So, the middle way is the middle way in this context between the two extremes of asceticism and too much worldly comfort. So we need to always get that balance. So remember we were saying the other day, means yesterday, that there is some happiness or well-being that does come from the external world, right? And given a choice, I would rather have good food, good surroundings, a good environment, than not. So it's not that these worldly pleasures are bad in and of themselves, but rather they're very time consuming. You understand? They take up a lot of time. I'll give you an example. So, where I live in the monastery, we have, for lunch, we have dal every day. One day is rice and dal. One day is dal with kind of a naan bread. Okay? All right.
For years.
Yeah. And 1 banana. Okay? Now, I will say, luckily, the dal they serve is awesome. Or maybe, I don't know, I'm just fooling myself because I don't have any choice, right? But anyway, I think it's great. Anyway, when I then go to, Bangalore, I go to Bangalore about once a month to teach. And, in a city, so many different kinds of restaurants, right? And so, I like Italian food. So then, the people there, they know this about me. Then they were saying, okay, we'll take you out to Italian. Yes. Great. So then we go out, and for whatever cause or condition, my favorite Italian restaurant is closed. Right? suffering, disappointment, samsara. But then, my host, don't worry. They have this, what is it, Zomato or something? This like app. Don't worry, we'll find you another Italian restaurant. So looks it up, and we go. It's across town. So then I realized, we drove another, because Bangalore traffic is horrible. We drove like 45 minutes to the restaurant and 45 minutes back. It's an hour and a half. You know what I mean? It was okay food. It's good, But you see, we went to the original restaurant, then just next door, or a couple doors down, there's an Indian restaurant. It's fine. It's good. Right? Then have that, and then use that extra hour and a half to meditate on bodhicitta. What do you think?
You can meditate in the traffic. That's the best way, actually.
That is true. That is true.
It's
But
the city solution.
no, we do have to do. We do have to do that. But you see, this emphasis on just living a life of simplicity and contentment. No, it's true. It's true. See, this whole practice of going on the alms round, very nice. It's been basically lost in the Tibetan tradition.
Which one, sir?
Which one?
To take the begging bowl and go out.
Yeah.
This is how the monks used to do, right? You have the bowl. Early in the morning, you just walk out in the village. And yes. But you see, actually, although they call it a begging bowl, you don't ask. You don't ask. But if someone wants to give, you accept. You understand? So it's actually not begging. Begging, you ask. But the point is then, I was able to go to Thailand a few times, and they still do this practice in Thailand, and it's great, because the whole mentality is different, right? Now when I go to, you go to a restaurant and what happens? Oh, this needs more salt. Oh, why did they overcook these? Right? Right? But rather, the mentality is different. You're given that. Right? Actually, then the what you should do, the monks, you stir everything together. Right? Otherwise, what do you have? Oh, I like this vegetable more, and then this one's not as good. Then this mind constantly commenting, I like this, I don't like that. To also just cultivate the contentment. Mix it up. So, there's a kind of prayer by Nagarjuna, right? That you seeing the food as medicine, right? Seeing the food as medicine. I eat this not to, look strong, or not because I have attachment to the taste, but only to sustain my body. That's why we eat. Right? So also, the monks' robes. Why do we wear clothing? To protect us from cold, animals biting us, or mosquitoes biting us, or whatever, right? There's no fashion statement, right? So, then we wear the same thing every day. It's very nice, actually. Because remember before, maybe some of you ladies experienced this, right? Right? You have the whole closet. Oh, what am I going to wear today? Just simplify your life. Even some of these, Silicon Valley kind of productivity gurus, they have they wear a white button-down shirt. They have 5 white button-down shirts and the same slacks, and they wear the same thing every day, just to simplify. What do you think? Anyway, so this life of simplicity and contentment allows us to save time, ultimately, time that we can then invest in our practice. Okay?
How does this transfer to attachments with people, with relationships?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Well, what in particular? What do you mean?
Well, so for example, like our loved ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the idea of not attaching to our loved ones.
Uh-huh.
But the practice of it, the actual execution of that, like the lived reality of that, confuses me. Like how do you love your mother? How do you love your friends, and then be totally okay with just them leaving and never seeing them again?
Yeah. Well, again, we have to start where we are, right? And so, just as an example, traditionally, when you leave the home life to go ordain and join the monastery, then you would basically, many would cut off ties to their family, right? But my own guru, before I ordained, he emphasized to keep in touch with your mother, right? Maintain a good relationship with her, right? So, well, there's a saying that, you change your mind, but you leave your external manner the same. Okay? So what that means is, see, our practice is going to be over a long period of time, right? So don't, just say to your mom, oh, sorry, I'm never going to see you again. I'm going to the cave, right? Not yet. But, gradually, you can share it with your mother, as an example, right? That what's going on in your life, and explain to her you've been starting to meditate, you've been starting to do this, and you're finding it very meaningful, rewarding, and you're wanting to devote more and more of your time into that, and the things that had been more important to you. That's always in flux for many people, right? So, for me, my mother saw that I was more peaceful, calm, and happy after I had met Dharma and started to practice than I was before, right? And luckily, she's a great person. So that is what made her happy, right? That I'm happy. Yeah. Later, when I told her that I was going to ordain, it was a bit difficult for her, but just more from the standpoint of that I would be living in India, very far away from her, I don't know. Am I answering your question?
Can I ask?
Yeah?
I think actually you touched this main point that many people also ask, what to tell to parents. So the main thing you would say is, it makes me more happy. And of course they should see this result. But for our parents, mostly what they want their children to be happy. And when they see your life is changing, they automatically follow that. Even if they don't like your Dharma way, they would be happy because you are happy. And also what you're asking about attachment, so inside your mind, you understand that by practicing Dharma, you are bringing more happiness to your mother as a condition. So in a way you talk to her, in a way you're paying attention to her, you're trying to find this middle way, as the Venerable were explaining. You're calling her, you're giving her attention, you're giving her presence. So you don't say, oh, I'm going to the cave, don't call me, I don't know you anymore. No, you're trying to show that the Buddhism brings more happiness to you and more happiness to her. But in your mind, this attachment shouldn't hold you from practice. Even though she's going to miss you, you're going to miss her, of course. But slowly, your mind, when is happy, she's more happy, and she supports.
Thank you. Okay. Stanza 5. When you keep their company, your 3 poisons increase. Your activities of hearing, thinking, and meditation decline, and they make you lose your love and compassion. Give up bad friends. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Okay. So the 3 poisons are ignorance, anger, and attachment. Okay? So, again, there's a saying that, the bad friends don't have horns on their heads. They don't have horns on their heads. But rather, I don't know, maybe you guys have experienced this, but you want to go on a 1 month retreat, right? And then, what, 1 month? Why do you have to be so long meditating? What are you guys doing anyway? Can't you just go for 10 days or 1 week, right? Or these ones that are, even if they're kind of on board with how your life is going to go, they're telling you to do a bit less, right? So again, this doesn't mean, like you tell your mom, sorry, Togme Zangpo has said, give up bad friends, I'm not going to see you anymore, right? But we have to lessen their influence on us, And sometimes, I've had this conversation recently with someone, but you don't have to convince anyone about the validity of your path, right? Everyone, by the way, especially in the Buddhist tradition, we would never think that everyone should become Buddhist, because people have different propensities, disposition, ways of viewing the world. And therefore, for some people, other belief systems, other ways of looking at the world is actually better for them. For this life. For this life. Oh yes. So, since that's the case, you don't have to convince anyone. It would be good if, you understand where someone else is coming from and they understand where you're coming from. But that doesn't then mean that you have to convince them. Right? Okay. Stanza 6. When you rely on them, your faults come to an end, and your good qualities grow like the waxing moon. Cherish the spiritual teacher even more than your body. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So this is a very important point. How to rely on the spiritual teacher. So in the Indo-Tibetan tradition, there's a very strong emphasis on the guru, actually that the guru is even more important than Buddha. So, unfortunately, also another sign of the degenerate age is that there are a lot of charlatans, like fake or controversial or misbehaving gurus. It's out there. So, the Dalai Lama often shares this story about people going around in Tibet and China now, proclaiming themselves to be great Dharma kings. And then they start to give teachings, and then very soon thereafter they start making demands for money, other possessions, and women. And then they came to the Dalai Lama and they said, "You have to do something to stop this." And he says, "What can I do? Except to explain the qualities that we should look for in an authentic spiritual master. But then it's up to you individually to see if that person has those qualities or not." So many years ago, again in Bangalore, I gave a very, just a little talk, right? Say a few things. Then afterwards, this young Indian woman comes up to me. It's like, "Oh wow, thank you so much for this talk." Anyway, starts praising me, which I don't want to repeat right now. But then says, "Will you be my guru?" And I said, "Have we met before?" No, right? So I said, "You've heard me speak for 2 hours? So let me ask you this. If you met some man, and you interacted with him for 2 hours, would you then marry him?" So now in India, actually, with arranged marriage, it's a little bit different, because maybe sometimes it is like that. But most of us aren't Indians here, right? So, but she understood. She's like, okay, no, right? So what I said is, you see, who we choose as our spiritual master. Okay, who we choose as our spouse. Okay, if it doesn't work out, all right, some problems, you know. But not too bad. Maybe the negative effects of choosing a wrong spouse are confined to this life, right? But if you choose a, you know, misleading or false spiritual teacher, that can have consequences that last many lifetimes, you know. In the time of Buddha, there was one quite intelligent young man who was training under a guru, and the guru saw that very soon his own student would surpass him. And being jealous of him, he gave these instructions to his student, so that his student would fall from grace. He told his student that the way to liberation is to kill 1,000 people. Yeah. So he did. He followed his guru. So his name later became Angulimala. Because, okay, mala, right? You know, like a rosary. Angul is the finger. So everyone he killed, he would cut off their finger and then wore it. Yes. Angulimala. Anyway, I mean, just as a nice story, so I'll finish it. But he was supposed to kill 1,000 for liberation. He killed 999. Okay? People. And then it's his last one. So who does he chance upon but the Buddha? Okay? So then he's kind of chasing after the Buddha. He's going to kill him. He's running after. And the Buddha is just walking very peacefully. And Angulimala is running. But no matter how much happens, he's not making up any ground. So finally he calls out and says, hey, you know, like hold up or stop. And the Buddha turns around and says, I have stopped. When are you going to stop? Something like this, right? So then actually this Angulimala then recognized, you know, the real thing that needs to be stopped is the uncontrolled rebirth in samsara. Anyway, so later Angulimala became a disciple of Buddha and actually became an arhat, the one who attains nirvana in that life. Okay, but anyway, can you imagine if he hadn't met the Buddha and kept on killing humans? Such a heavy negative karma, right? So in any case, is a most important decision, you know, who we choose as our spiritual teacher, you know, most important. So in the traditional texts, they talk about 10 qualities of a spiritual teacher. This is from the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras by Maitreya, where he says that a spiritual teacher should be disciplined, pacified, and thoroughly pacified. So let me explain as we go around. So, did we mention the 3 higher trainings? Okay, anyway, we talked about different ways of practice, right? We have 37 practices, we have the 6 perfections and so forth. But there's also talk of the so-called 3 higher trainings. The training in discipline, ethical discipline, the training in concentration, and the training in wisdom. Okay? So, the first 3 qualities that we seek in a spiritual teacher is that that person, he or she, would be disciplined by having taken on, maybe precepts, or at least abandoning wrongdoing. Yeah? The training in ethical discipline. Then we have pacified. Pacified through the training in concentration. So as we get a little bit, or maybe a lot bit better in our meditation, see, we'll get to a point. These discursive thoughts that I've been talking about, that maybe we've noticed when we try to meditate, right? So at a certain point, we'll get to we'll get to pacify these discursive thoughts, and then when we're able to maintain a perfectly focused mind, then the other kind of afflictions, like anger or attachment, jealousy, so forth, they can't arise. They're suppressed because we're in single point in concentration on whatever object of meditation we have. So that's what it means to be pacified. But the third quality is thoroughly pacified. Because although we might pacify our afflictions through the meditation or concentration, when we arise from that meditation, then the afflictions can come again, because we haven't abandoned them. And the abandoning of the afflictions comes from meditating on and realizing the correct view of reality, the ultimate view of reality. Okay? So that, when we talk about the higher training in wisdom, it means wisdom of ultimate reality. Okay? All right. So those are the first 3 qualities. Then, the guru or the spiritual teacher should have more knowledge or qualities than the student. Now, there can be various bodies of knowledge, and so sometimes there'll be mutual guru-disciple relationships, right? So, he is the student of this one and also the guru, mutual. That can happen. But with whatever, topic, let's say if it's on, logic or bodhicitta or whatever, then the guru should have more qualities than the student. Okay? All right. So next is perseverance in giving teachings. Okay? Means having great energy and interest in teaching and guiding students. Okay? 6th is a wealth of scriptural knowledge. Being learned in the scriptures. You guys know. So this is also important because, these days, we always have to check, right? When you see, for example, the Dalai Lama give teachings, he's always quoting the great Indian masters like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and so forth, because it's one reason for doing this is to show the authentic lineage of the teachings, and not that it's just something that he has made up. There are, unfortunately, in this day and age, I don't know, but maybe a lot of teachers or teachings that kind of masquerade as authentic teachings, or some might even say, oh man, I met someone in Thailand who is saying, that the Buddha talks to him. And now he's given 2 lakh, the equivalent of like 2 lakh rupees to give a talk. He's like kind of bragging to me. I mean, maybe. But, yeah, that is very dangerous, right? Very dangerous. Okay. Wealth of scriptural knowledge. Next is to be skilled in, ascertaining the correct view of reality. Then point 8 is skill in teaching, so to be able to explain and induce understanding in the disciples or the students. Then number 9 is great compassion. So their motivation for teaching shouldn't be a wish for their own, fame or wealth or their own benefit, but rather solely concerned with the well-being of the students. And the last point, the 10th, is abandoning dispiritedness. That's how it's translated. But what that means is, some students are, they need to be explained things over and over again. They're not good students, right? And so rather than, just being very depressed by that, to then, persevere, and even if they have to explain a certain point again and again, it's okay. So it's very difficult to find someone with those 10 qualities. But then it says in the text that one should then at least have, or at least try to find someone who has the trainings of the 3 higher trainings: ethical discipline, concentration, and wisdom, and especially great compassion. Their motivation for teaching has to be pure. Okay? So, a lot more can be said about this, but just so you guys know, you see, there's a process of checking out or analyzing the particular guru before you enter into a kind of dharma relationship with him or her, right? So it says in the traditional text, you can even do this for a period of up to 12 years. Okay, so some of you, I do hope that at one point you will be able to, see the Dalai Lama. But although a certain guru has a great reputation, has a fancy title, that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that you enter into a dharma relationship with them, right? So it isn't so much about what qualities that guru has, but rather what you can see, how things appear to you, whether you can see that person as an enlightened being or as a qualified master or not. And this also depends on your karma. So many times you'll see in the text, right? There's a great Indian yogi, Milarepa, and when he heard his guru's name, Marpa, the first time he heard Marpa, then tears would well up in his eyes, and he would think, "Oh, I have to find Marpa," right? So that's because for many lifetimes they had that relationship of guru-disciple, right? So, then the presence of this special kind of karmic connection then makes the teachings you receive from him or her to be more effective. You see? So anyway, you can go to teachings, and what the Dalai Lama often says is, you go to the teaching like a lecture, right? Like what we're doing today. It's a lecture. We're not entering into any, I'm not your guru now, okay? No, we keep it light. And similarly, when you go see the Dalai Lama, you can also attend and listen. And then slowly, as you gain more confidence in that person, then you might want to enter into a more formalized relationship. But no rush.